All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're excited to have you with us. We are enjoying the benefit of having John Williams with us today to present on nutrition as we age and the benefits of proper hydration and nutrition for seniors. And so we're excited to have John with us today. My name is Angie France. I am the product and programming manager with Prestige Senior Living. We have the really a wonderful opportunity every quarter to share webinars with you to talk about some things that are very important as we age. And we know that all of our residents within our communities are active agers, and we want to make sure that they are enjoying wellness within our communities. Prestige Senior Living has been around for many, many years. We have communities in the Washington and Oregon area, and we would love to have visits come into our communities to see some of the wonderful events that we host, some of the wonderful activities and life enrichment that our residents engage in. And so if you're ever in the area or you are looking for a place for your mom, your dad, your loved one, or perhaps for even yourself, we would love to have you come and visit with us and just experience some of the things that we get to do. And one of those things that we do look at very closely, especially as we're moving into these spring and summer months, is hydration. And ways that we can better hydrate ourselves as we age, as the temperatures warm up. But we also look at ways that we can find hydration through nutrition, but as well as nutrition that's going to work with our whole body and our brain. And so we are very thrilled to have John Williams with us today. A little bit about John before I let him get started. John graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree in culinary nutrition from Johnson and Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island. Such a beautiful part of our country, John. The same culinary school that Emeril Lagasse went to. So, bam! I love Emeril Lagasse. After attaining the registered dietitian credentials, John served as an in-house dietitian for Sodexo, which is a large continuing care retirement community in Whitehall. And so, that's in Pennsylvania. And before moving to Arizona, where he now resides, and all those warm temperatures down there, John, I'm sure you're always hydrating.
That's
John has served as a consultant dietitian in senior living communities for more than 15 years. Currently, his responsibilities include working with communities and dietitians to provide excellent nutritional support to seniors. John, once again, thanks for being with us today. We're excited for the information that you're about to share, and we look forward to learning from you and taking things away that we can implement into our own lives. I do want to let everyone know before you get started, we do have the chat and the Q&A at the bottom. We have filtered some questions ahead of time as well that John's going to answer at the end of the webinar. But please, if you have any questions, please put those either in the chat or the Q&A. Thanks so much, John. We're going to let you get started.
all right. Thank you so much, Angie and Marissa, for inviting me to present this presentation. One thing I wanted to say before we get started is nutrition isn't a one size fits all. So we have to be really adaptable and flexible. There might be some times where we need extra calories and we're like, hey, go out and eat, maybe an ice cream sundae because you need those extra calories. And then there's other times where we're like, hey, let's pull back and, let's really focus on some nutritional items. So some things in this presentation that might shock you, but I just want to let you know that it's, we're not talking about diets today and those types of things. We're just talking about how we really protect ourselves as we move forward with eating the foods that we need and when we need them. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get started. And I love always starting a presentation with this. So one cannot think well, love well, sleep well if one has not dined well. And I think food is really universal to everybody, right? As we're growing up, when we're going through, school and college, and then as we get older, food just means a lot. It's essential, but it means a lot to us. The topics that we're going to talk about today is we'll get into, how nutrition changes as we age, healthy eating guidelines, which is what these guidelines are based on that we're going to talk about today. It's called the 2020 to 2025 Nutritional Guidelines. It's put out by the United States Department of Agriculture or USDA. And there'll be a 2026 through 2030 guidelines, a new set of guidelines coming out next year. So maybe we need to do this again, Angie and Marissa, next year when the new guidelines come out. I hear that there's not many changes. So UDS, the USDA My Plate for meal planning. We're going to talk about superfoods. So, how can we really elevate our brain function and really prevent the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia? Weight management and calorie balance. It's surprising if we add just a little bit of butter or something into something, how many calories it adds in. So, I want to show you what that looks like. We'll look at like cod and then like fried cod and how much that adds on to it. So we can kind of see, hey, if we used a bake technique or if we ordered baked cod, that might be better for us at this point. And calorie balance. And then, like Angie said, well, we're going to really focus in on hydration. And just know with hydration too that food plays a vital role in hydration. If there was no hydration in food, we would basically be eating cardboard, right? There would just be no moisture or anything in it. So as I go through this presentation, it's even more important to eat well because that we get some of our hydration from food. And then we actually had a question about hydration and food that we'll cover towards the end. So nutrition as we age. So our metabolism does slow down as we get older. I'm even recognize this in my 40s. I just turned 45. So I'm recognizing that if I eat something, I kind of gain weight a little bit faster. And then sometimes as we get older, we just don't eat as much, right? As we age, we absorb less nutrients from the foods that we do eat. Our taste buds might be reduced. We're going to have a focus on vitamins and minerals because those are the items that those are the foods that seem not to be absorbed as we get older. And those are the vitamins and minerals are what we need to protect our eyes and our skin and everything else. So it's really, really important. We'll talk about specific vitamins and minerals coming up. In senior living, weight is a key indicator of proper nutrition. So, if we're maintaining the weight, that's always the goal. We don't want to see really large, increases and decreases. It's nice just to stay nice and steady. We want to avoid restrictive diets, such as like a 1.5 gram diet. I don't know if you ever had a food that doesn't have a whole lot of salt in it, but it doesn't taste always that great. Now, there are certain circumstances where we have to go, a little bit lighter on sodium, and we can adapt with different flavors, but overall, salt's a flavor enhancer. So we don't want to stay away from it. We can't overdo it either. So, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. And then satisfaction with food is a high priority. If you put me into a situation, and I'm not really a super, seafood eater, but if you put me into a place where that's all they served, my satisfaction would be low and I would probably lose some weight. So, what are some unique needs of people that are ages 60 and above? So, enjoy a variety of foods from each food group. So, you can see this picture here. It's a really nice variation. I know that sometimes we like to have we're going to eat this at lunch and this at dinner, but really look at that, what you're eating and figure out, does it have multiple colors? Is it fish? Is it beef? Is it, chicken? What kind of, can we mix different nuts in here for protein? So that will really help. And when we do incorporate these variety of foods into our diet, we have a much lower risk of chronic diseases, such as diabetes and heart disease. There you can see high blood pressure, hypertension, and so on. We want to choose foods with little to no added sugar, low saturated fats or no saturated fats, and lower sodium. But as Americans, as we eat, food's gotten higher in sodium. If you go to a grocery store and you look at a prepared item, it probably has almost your entire day's worth of sodium in one item. So we can spread that sodium out throughout the day. Get enough protein throughout the day to maintain muscle mass. So if you ever worked with a senior, and you see that their clothes are starting to fit a little bit light, not as tight, or they're starting to get a little bit weaker, it might mean that some of their lean muscle mass has kind of dissipated over time, and we need to really focus back on protein. And then nutrients that we want to focus on are potassium, calcium, vitamin D, dietary fiber, and vitamin B12. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these as we move forward. So healthy eating guidelines. So the typical guideline, and if you look at a nutrition facts label, most of the nutrition facts labels are calculated for a 2,000 calorie diet. And typically that's what we see for, any average adult. But it does vary based off of activity level, age, gender, height, and weight. I wanted to introduce you to MyPlate. And remember, I said the USDA has developed great resources. This is a great resource to learn how much you should eat. I'm going to actually take you through an example about how you can determine your meal plan and how many calories that you should be taking in each day. But what is MyPlate? So it was launched in 2011. I don't know if you remember the old Food Guide pyramid. I mean, it had sweets on the bottom and it had your grains down the bottom, or sweets up at the top, so you eat less of those, and grains down at the bottom, so you eat more of those. So that's kind of changed, and it's more individualized now. It provides a visual reminder of how much to eat and what to eat. And some of the core principles are, just like we talked about before, that it can be customized to your age, gender, height, weight, and activity level. You can get your recommended calorie intake very quickly. You can learn how many calories are in food. There's great guides that the USDA provides. And then we'll also talk about increased physical activity. If you can't do increased physical activity, to consult your physician. So, we don't want you if you're having back problems or other things like that. We need to do that safely. So you don't want to go out and run any marathons tomorrow. So if we do an example, if we were to go to myplate.gov, there's an area there that says, determine your calorie level. So I wanted to take you through just how to get that because I think that's really important to understand. Hey, how many calories in general, should I be eating each day? So it starts off by asking you your language. So, there are multiple languages represented here, which is I think is a bonus. You put in your age and your sex, and this is just a fictitious one, so 75 years old and the male. And then you put in the height and the weight, and then you just indicate you'll click on, less than 30 minutes of activity, 30 to 60 minutes of activity per day, or more than 60. And then when you click through, it'll give you your summary just to make sure that, that is you. And then it will display your calories for the day. So this just happened to come up to 2,000 calories, what the general recommended one is, but maybe you're 1,800 calories or maybe you're 2,200 calories. And the whole goal here is to maintain your weight. If you don't eat enough, you're going to be in deficit and probably lose weight. If we eat too much, we'll probably gain weight. So we want to just have a nice balance there. I wanted to show you how activities can really lead to, if you need to maintain weight and say, you do pick up a little bit of weight, or maybe it'd be good if you just lost a little bit of weight for mobility. You could get around a little bit easier. So I just wanted to show you a little bit about how activities, equal calorie burn, and really kind of the more weight that we have, the more calorie burn opportunity that we're going to have. So you can see I'm probably going to skip the weightlifting and some of those intense ones, but you can see like aerobics, water aerobics. So for a 30-minute activity, a 125-pound person would burn about 120 calories. Now, if you think about it, a snack has about 200 to 250 calories. So we'd have to do that for, an hour to burn off a snack, just to kind of give you some conceptualization there. A 155 pound person would burn 144 calories for a half hour, and then a 185-pound person would burn 168 pounds. And so as we go through, like bicycling, stationary, if it was moderate, 210 calories. So you can see as we get more physical or as we get more active, we can burn more calories too. And that helps to, if we want to have a treat or something, then we know that, hey, if we did a little bit of swimming, we can get rid of that pretty quickly. Now, I do want to say that the number one concern with seniors and senior living is weight loss. That's what we see the most. So that's what we focus on typically. Weight gain we look at too, but we really want to make sure that people aren't losing weight. This is the amount of protein that you need per day. So, the healthy adult, will basically start off at, 0.8 grams per kilogram. And how we get to kilograms, I did an example over here. So, a 150-pound person divided by 2.2, that gives us 68 kilograms. And then for older Americans, which is, basically 51 or older, we're going to follow this column in the center or the column to the right. And I just went right in the middle of that center column and did 1.1 grams of protein. So it comes up to 75 grams of protein. So you can really look and say, okay, I'm a senior and I'm an older adult, so I'm probably in the 1 gram, per kilogram area. And then if you have a chronic disease, we might have to go up to 1.2 to 1.5. But anybody can calculate your protein needs. One area where protein might need to be restricted is with like, if somebody's having a renal issue with their kidneys and they just can't process all that protein, we might have to moderate that a little bit. Sometimes we have to give more. So it's really important to work with, your dietitian and your physician to make sure, we have the proper nutrients in place. Here are some superfoods. Remember, superfoods can help to delay the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. It can also help with residents with Alzheimer's and dementia too, because we don't want it to progress further, right? Alzheimer's and dementia are very progressive diseases. So I wanted to walk through these because I think it's really important. And a lot of these are, I don't want to, I mean, they're healthy foods, but they're also very natural foods. So fish has omega-3 fatty acids that's been proven to protect your immune system. It prevents heart disease. And some examples of that would be tuna, salmon, and cod. For leafy green vegetables, they're a great source of vitamin A, C, and calcium. Also, like spinach would be good for iron. Also, like think of like Popeye, right? When we were younger. But you can see spinach. There's kale there, Swiss chard, collard mustard greens, and those are the ones that will give you the vitamin A, C, and the calcium. Nuts are a great source of alternative protein and monounsaturated fats. So, unsaturated fats, or if we are going to consume fats, those are the best type. They don't elevate your bad cholesterol or your LDL cholesterol. And that's hazelnuts, walnuts, almonds, and pecans. And then olive oil is great for vitamin E and monounsaturated fats again. And the extra virgin olive oil is what we'd want to focus on. Whole grains is a great source of soluble and insoluble fiber. Later on, we're going to talk a little bit about how to just stay regular from a digestive standpoint and to avoid constipation. And eating whole grains is one of those, one of the things that will help to keep us on a normal schedule. And that would be oatmeal, brown rice, and whole grain bread are examples. Yogurt, I think we've heard the benefits of yogurt for a very long time, but it's a good source of protein and calcium. And you want to consume yogurts that are live active cultures. Those are going to be the most beneficial, and it's going to really improve your gut health. You're going to feel better, and you're going to digest food a lot better. Legumes, or plant-based protein. So again, a good way to, if you're, don't want to eat a ton of meat or, chicken or whatever that is, you can substitute that with beans. So kidney beans, black beans, red beans, and garbanzo beans are good examples. And then, of course, tomatoes are great in vitamin C and lycopene. So that's the globe cherries, cherry tomatoes, and Roma tomatoes are good examples. And that's all from the Harvard Medical School. So a great resource there. I found this while I was building this presentation. I just thought this was so interesting. So like, where do our additional calories come from? So you can see with lean meat, which is recommended, for most recipes, if you're, making chili or whatever that might be, is about 122 calories per 3 ounce serving size. But if we were to do like a full fat meat or, one that wasn't low in fat, that would add actually 209 calories. We want the protein, but we want to try to limit the fat so we don't gain weight. Like a full fat mocha, you can see there the milk is about 110 calories for fat-free milk. If we went up to whole milk, then that adds another 79 calories. And then if we add chocolate syrup, which we probably want to do because that just sounds fantastic, that's going to add another 101 calories. So you can see where that's coming from. There's the breaded cod that we talked about. And if it's baked, it's about 99 calories. But if it's fried, then it's about 131 calories. So well, it's actually in addition to, so it's 131 plus 99. And there's our popcorn, when we go to the movie theater or we're watching a great movie, we always love popcorn, right? And so popcorn itself is actually a whole grain. It's really good for us, and it only has about 62 calories per 2 cups. But if we add butter, then it actually pretty much doubles the calories, actually triples the calories. So you can see where that would come in with the butter. And then applesauce is 103 calories roughly per cup. And if it has added sugars, then it's 67 additional calories that would be added. And then for fat-free milk, you could see 1 cup would be 83 calories, and then we'd have to add 63 calories on for the fat. So I thought this was a really good breakdown of calories and intake, so you could see, okay, we can make some different choices. Maybe I've gained a little bit of weight recently. Well, maybe I'll do baked cod instead of fried cod. So it really helps you to make those decisions as you move forward. When I was out in the field consulting, there's some guidelines that we use for weight maintenance, and overall, if you go to your doctor, they would use these same criteria. But again, I wanted to mention that the goal is to maintain weight. If weight loss is desired, which I would love to lose a little bit of weight too, we want to make sure that that's planned and that we do that safely. It's not about just cutting the calories in half or removing the foods that we love, because then we'll crave those foods. The worst thing you could do is say, don't eat something, right? Because then you want to eat it. But if we eat it in moderation or we learn how to eat that food, then we can still enjoy it and we don't feel like we're giving up something, which is really important. But significant weight loss or gain is considered to be significant at 5% change times 30 days, 7.5 times 90 days, and 10% times 180 days. So if you had a 100 pound, person and, they lost 5 pounds, that would be 5% times 30 days. And then we want to look at that to see, okay, is the person not eating well? Has something changed in their life? Do they have a chronic disease that we now have to accommodate? So it's really, really important as we age that we monitor our weight. I don't think it needs to be a daily thing, but I think weekly or biweekly is good. If you look at it daily, we do fluctuate quite a bit, and you could get frustrated from those fluctuations. But if you kind of weigh every 2 weeks to a month, you'll get a very, very stable weight assessment. And weight loss typically occurs if the calories fall below what is needed to maintain your weight. So that's when we say it's basically like a nutritional deficit. Right. Now let's talk about hydration. So of course it's getting warm. Out in Arizona where I live, it's very, very hot. So we're already hitting 92, and gosh, we already had our first 100 degree day in Arizona. So we're like already focused in and honed in on this. But it is important to drink enough fluid throughout the day. I know that I have to remind myself. I bring water with me wherever I go. My wife is really good. She always has one of those water pitchers with her, and I swear she fills that like 6 or 7 times. She's amazing. I need to model myself off of her more. But overall, if we're hydrated, we're going to digest food well. We're going to our bodily functions are just going to work better, and we're going to feel better. And this person just looks super happy with her glass, her cup of water, and she's ready to go. So what are some of the benefits of hydration? So it regulates our body temperature. So, if we go out and we exercise, we get hot. What's the first thing that we crave? It's a cold beverage, probably, right? So we're trying to reduce our body temperature. It's manifested in thirst, but really what our body's saying is, hey, we're warm. We want to reduce our body temperature to get back into the normal range. Adequate hydration also helps to lubricate our joints. So if we're dehydrated, we might feel kind of achy. So that's a good indicator that we may need to increase our fluid. Again, it improves digestion. It decreases constipation. So if we don't consume enough fluid, water or other beverages, we just can't, move that food through our gastrointestinal system, and we end up getting, people can get constipated from that, and then we have to work on ways, to work on, mitigating that constipation. So if we get enough whole grains and enough water or fluid as we go through the day, we'll probably mitigate the good amount of constipation. It also helps to lead to good, healthy kidney function. This one I really love. It improves cognition, and overall, it supports healthy skin. So it's something that we definitely want to do. And I always get this question, how much water do I drink, right? Because we all, a lot of people have those water pitchers and it says like, okay, we're getting started. You're doing good. You did it, And I think those water pitchers are really good. I have some examples of those coming up. But basically, for people 51 or older, men are recommended to drink at least 13 cups a day and 9 cups a day for women. And then if we consume less than 6.5 cups of fluid per day, that could lead to being dehydrated or just fluid volume or fluid deficit. And then we could have that constipation. We start feeling bad and our joints start hurting. So, then we can get back make sure we're consuming enough. If for some reason, especially with a kidney or renal issue, if you do have, some kind of kidney disease, your doctor may limit the amount of fluid that you consume, and then you would follow their guidelines. Typically we don't want to go less than 1.5 liters per day. And just when I was creating this slide, I was just thinking of all the different fun ways that we can add hydration to our day. It's not just drinking water. I mean, I know that I love water, but not that much, right? Like I'd much rather put something in it or have tea or something else. So I wanted to give you some other ideas if you're just not into drinking water straight out. So of course you could carry a water bottle with you, but look, we can put fruit in it and other things to make it taste really good. There's a bunch of things that we could add to water. One of my favorite drinks is blueberry infused water. Super easy. It's just water. You get frozen blueberries with a little bit. I use sugar substitute and a little bit of sugar and kind of separate it out and put it in and just let it basically sit for about a day. And you take it out and you strain that, and it is very, very delicious. It has great antioxidants, and I think it just helps to hydrate us better. You can see here we could use ice pops. It is getting hot out, so that would be a nice way to cool ourselves down. One thing I didn't put on here, but is in the picture, is we could even do like frozen like fruit, right? Fruit has a lot of moisture in it, and that might be really good too. Infused water we kind of talked about already. Gatorade or like sports drinks like Gatorade, Powerade are great, especially if we need to replenish our electrolytes and we've been working out a lot or really putting a lot of stress on our body. It's good to replace electrolytes like that. Now, the only time we'd have to be careful is if you do have some kind of renal insufficiency. We'd want to watch out because sports drinks do have a lot of potassium and phosphorus, and those are two things that we look out for. We don't want to overconsume those, if we have kidney problems. So or kidney concerns. So, and then hydrating foods such as watermelon, cantaloupe, and honeydew. I guess I did put it on there, but you could also freeze those too in the summer, and that would be really good. So, just some great tips on some ways to stay hydrated. Overall, satisfaction is key. We want, people to enjoy their food. I tell you a brief story. When I was going through culinary school, I worked in the senior living community as a maintenance person. And as I was doing maintenance, I would hear, people come by and they would just say, "Oh, I wish that they would do this for dinner. I wish they would do for that for lunch," right? And so I was also the cook that night. So I would implement it, and they were like looking around, like, what is going on here? Like, who heard me? But I think it's important to remember the human part of food, and that we all love food. And sometimes we just have to understand, what makes us happy, and then, what could we be a little bit flexible on to bring into our diet that would help us to, just be a little bit more, healthier. I did want to talk about diets. So I hear this all the time. Hey, I'm going on a diet, right? I think that's good, but I think the word diet's kind of scary. I think when I counsel people, the thing that they say is that when they hear diet, it means that they're going to give something up. And I don't think a diet should be like that. I think diets are hard to maintain. It's something that you say, I'm going on a diet, and then you try to stay on it, right? But it's just not always conducive. I ran a class about 15 years ago, and we did a study. And by just doing small changes over a long period of time, we saw much, much better results. People lost weight, over that time period more so than if they went on a diet. And they overall felt healthy. So maybe if we're consuming like white bread, maybe we go to whole grain bread. Maybe that's, just a really simple switch over. And we do that for a little while. And then we move on to the next item. But I think the worst thing we could do is put pressure on us with our food, because that's kind of been set since we've been born, right? Through our parents and the things that we like. And I just don't think that's going to change as we get older. So we have to learn how to adapt with that a little bit more. But whenever we say diet, a lot of people ask me, what's the best diet, right? And I always say the Mediterranean if they have to do a diet, because that one's based off of the Food Guide pyramid, and it's a really healthy diet overall. But it really focuses on just the eating guidelines, which I end up going back to. But I would say you don't want to omit, a particular, different food items from your diet, because again, we want to get a variety. So just, if a doctor were to tell you to go on a diet, say, hey, I want to make small changes over a long period of time, and I think I'll get further that way. I think that's a fantastic plan. So, Angie, do we have any questions so far? Otherwise, I'll go into the questions that we have previously submitted.
No, not at this time.
Okay, am I doing okay on time? I think I talked a little fast.
You're good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So let's go over some of the questions. So one of the categories of questions that we got were general nutrition questions. So what should I be eating at my age? I feel like we kind of, talked about this throughout the presentation, but I did just want to recap it. So again, we want to eat a variety of foods, not just, just one food item, especially in vegetables and fruits. They're fruits and vegetables are different colors because they have different nutrients. So it's really good if we can vary those. We do want to limit salt intake, and not to the point to where food doesn't taste good, but to a point to where we're not getting too much sodium. If you taste something, you're like, wow, that's salty. It has a lot of salt in it. So we want to be careful with that. Anytime that we can get foods that are higher in fiber is good, unless you have some kind of issue where fiber is not good for you. But overall, fiber is good. One thing to remember with fiber is that we need to have adequate hydration too. If you just do the fiber portion of it and not the hydration part, say like you're not drinking enough to support yourself, you're going to end up getting constipated. So we need to make sure as we increase fiber that you're really meeting your hydration goals. The next one is, do I need to eat less as I get older? That's kind of a not a difficult question to answer, but it's somewhat individualized, right? So I think as we get older, again, we do seem to gain a little bit more weight typically. But there might be sometimes, if you're used to eating a lot of food, we may have to cut that back a little bit, just, for mobility and different reasons. Overall, I don't recommend to eat less. I just recommend to eat the foods that we should eat, because I think that will lead to healthier. But I think if we eat less and then knowing that as we age, we absorb less, then it can lead to weight loss. I just think that's a combination that we want to try to avoid, so that we don't end up losing a bunch of weight. And then that's not good for our body either if that were to happen. Um, let's see. The next question is how much protein do I need now? We kind of went over that. So, really protein needs start at 1 gram per kilogram. And remember, if you take your weight, divide it by 2.2, and then you times it by 1.1 or 1.2, that, you'll be in the range of your protein um, for that one. And again, it's important to get enough protein so we maintain our lean muscle mass or lean muscle in our body. We want to continue to be strong. Um, is it normal that I'm not as hungry as I used to be? Absolutely. That's the number one thing I hear. Like, hey, I just don't feel hungry. Pardon me. Let's get some water here. I gotta stay hydrated too. Um, but we want to make sure that even though we know that we're not hungry, that we're still eating because we know that we need it to sustain our body and to stay healthy. How can I eat healthy if I have trouble chewing or swallowing? That is a great question. So there's two diet standards that are recognized out in the industry, and I say diet, but they're more like modifications of a just regular diet or regular preferred diet. But one is called the National Dysphagia Diet, and the other one is called the International Dysphagia Diet Standardization Initiative. The easier way to remember that one is ITSY, like the itsy bitsy spider. I know it's a little corny, but it helps me to remember it. But those are two different standards that healthcare professionals use. And really, as we age, we do lose the ability to swallow well, and we may even aspirate or get food into our liquid into our lungs, which leads to, a lung infection or pneumonia. So we definitely want to avoid that. So, as a dietitian, what we do is we work with speech pathologists to help determine what the proper diet is, or what the proper modification is. Maybe it's just simply, just grinding food. Maybe we're just having a problem with our teeth, like dentures or something along those lines, and we just need a little bit of help with like ease of mastication of food. So it can start as simple as that, and then we can go all the way up to puree foods where everything's a wet mashed potato consistency. And then we can even add thicken liquids. If we need to thicken liquid so that that liquid doesn't go down into the lungs as easy, it's a little bit thicker, so it kind of acts like food a little bit more. And that will keep us safer, then we can do that too. This would all be done through a physician or really more specifically a speech pathologist. They're the ones that really help to facilitate these types of modifications. And ultimately, you want to stay safe is the goal there. Are there foods that can help brain health? We did talk about that during the presentation, but it's so important. I want to mention it again. So again, foods that are high in omega fatty acids. So fish is really good. Fruit, I mentioned the blueberry water. That's fantastic. That has antioxidants in it. It's great for memory and brain health. And I did leave one thing off that I think is really important, and it's dark chocolate. Dark chocolate's very good for antioxidants too. You just want to make sure that the cocoa levels are high and that the refined sugars are low, and that we can get even more benefit out of it. Vegetables, again, we want to eat a variety. I know something that we were taught when we were younger is you want to eat the rainbow, right? A variety of different colors. And again, those are the different nutrients that we need, the different vitamins and minerals that we need. Whole grains, again, are really important, and then consuming adequate water. How can I maintain a healthy weight or gain weight safely? So I think where that starts is maintaining your weight. Again, I wouldn't take your weight every day because there are going to be fluctuations, and that might be a little frustrating. But weekly or biweekly, I think is a great way to do it. And then we just need to look at, like the things that we had presented in this presentation. I think it's, not maybe going with, the fry cod, or maybe if we do eat popcorn, we, omit the butter, or maybe do half butter. So I think it's really individualized. Weight, I swear sometimes I could eat it like, a whole meal and I feel like I don't gain weight. And then I feel like I go eat a snack and I've gained 10 pounds, right? So it's really within us sometimes, how we feel about our weight too. And where we want to go from there. And we just need to adjust as we go forward. But again, there are going to be times where we have to eat a little bit more to support our weight. And then there's going to be times where we might have to pull back just a little bit. So it's all about, again, weight maintenance. So that's really good. But if we do need to gain weight, I definitely work with a dietitian, or a healthcare professional, and we can work on increasing your weight safely. If somebody is severely underweight, we may even use what we call fortified foods, where we're adding additional calories and protein. It's almost like sports nutrition, where we're trying to get more calories and more protein into them. So that's the other side of the spectrum, where somebody is extremely underweight, and we're trying to slowly bring them back into their weight range. So great questions. All right, hydration, my favorite topic. And so, how much water should I drink per day? Again, I want to repeat this just because I feel like we always ask this question. So I'm just going to repeat what we talked about in the previous portion of the presentation. But again, no less than 1.5 liters of water or fluid. Like the smart water bottles, the bigger ones, those are about 1.5 liters. So that's a good visual representation. So we definitely want to do that. And again, it's 13 cups for men, and 9 cups for women, 51 years or older. This one we find a lot. So if I don't feel thirsty, do I still need to drink water? And the question to that is yes. And actually, we probably need to focus on it more, right? Something that our body just isn't telling us, hey, you're thirsty. It might be because maybe we're not moving around as much. There might be different reasons, but as we age, we don't feel as hungry sometimes, and we just lose that thirst sensation. So it is really important to have that water bottle, or something that you can bring around with you, where you always, always, always have access to something to drink. And again, we know if we're not eating well, we really have to focus on nutrition then. This one's a great question about coffee and tea. And soup, can I count that towards my fluid intake? And the short answer is yes. So there was a study, and the philosophy's kind of changed. But gosh, about 15 or 20 years ago, the philosophy was is that we actually had to subtract the coffee, especially the coffee and sometimes the tea from the overall intake for the day, because they're diuretics or we do urinate more as we drink caffeine. Unfortunately, that's a side effect of it. The current philosophy, however, though, is that coffee and tea do contribute to the overall, and we don't subtract it out anymore. So you can count that towards your fluid intake. I know some coffee shops have like Trentas or extra large, and then some might, the typical cup of coffee is about 8 ounces or a cup typically. And then with soup, we can count that, but we normally count the broth-based soups. If it's cream-based, that's going to go more towards calories. And, there obviously is hydration in it, but the broth-based soups are going to provide more hydration. If you think about it, when we get sick, what do we want? We want chicken noodle soup or broth or something like that. And we just feel better, right, when we have that. Um, what are signs of dehydration? We can all do this one test, and I want to show it to you now. So, actually, you probably can't see it too good on me, so you could do it to yourself. Now, if you bruise easily, you might want to avoid this one. But if you go and you go right between your index finger and your thumb, and you just pull up your skin, if it goes right back down, chances are you're hydrated. If it stays up, that's called tenting, and that means that you possibly could be dehydrated. So that's one way that you can certainly tell very quickly if you're hydrated or not. Of course, labs, if you go for any types of labs, they'll probably have some kind of hydration indicators built into your labs too, into your laboratory values. Let's see. So we talked about that. Okay, and then let me just see if there's any other signs. Yep. Oh, also, if you have dry mouth, that's another sign where you might have some dehydration or that you want to hydrate, you want to hydrate more. This next one can be a little bit difficult, and I totally understand where we come from this, but what if a resident has to go to the bathroom a lot, or what if I have to go to the bathroom a lot? Should I still drink water? And the short answer is yes. Our body still needs to be hydrated, but we need to work with healthcare professionals to help develop plans to deal with that. Maybe there's certain times of the day that we're going to go to the bathroom and just know, hey, we're just going to go in advance because I know, we're going to do that. But I think working with healthcare professionals, we can really mitigate the need to use the restroom as often. But it is really important to stay hydrated. So I know the first thing to do is when you feel like you have to go to the bathroom all the time is not to eat or drink as much, but that will actually lead to negative outcomes. So we don't want to do that. Now, condition specific questions. What should I eat if I have diabetes or high blood pressure? So, that's a great question. We get that all the time. And again, you want to eat foods that are low in refined sugars. For people that have diabetes, whole grains are really, really great. If you eat white bread, it's probably going to elevate your blood sugar. If you eat whole grains, now we've incorporated fiber into it, and we really subtract that out of the carbohydrates. So it's lower carbohydrate, high fiber, and more valuable to us. We want to incorporate protein if you do have diabetes with a starch or like with a grain, and that will delay the onset of higher blood sugar. So if we just eat, say we drink orange juices, which is very, very high in sugar, there's a guide called the glycemic index, and orange juice is on the top, and then less refined foods are on the bottom. But if we were to combine, say it's like crackers and cheese, then your blood sugar won't spike as much, and we'll get that benefit from that protein, and we'll build our lean muscle mass. So that will be really good. With high blood pressure, it really comes down to sodium and high fat foods. So we want to just monitor our sodium. Typically, we need about 2 to 2.5 grams of sodium per day. If you're restricted, typically that's 1.5 to 2 grams, if there's a restriction there. But we want to make sure that we're not going over 2 to 2.5 grams of sodium. That does elevate blood pressure, and can certainly lead to a negative outcome there. So we want to try to avoid that. And of course, high blood pressure can be caused by, atherosclerosis, which is a buildup of fat in our arteries. And then we need to put stents in or other things to open up the arteries, right? So we want to try to reduce fat intake if we can, or go with more like unsaturated fats versus the saturated fats. So our olive oil comes into play there. Are there foods that I should avoid with medications? I know that, as dietitians, we do look at drug, food, nutrient interactions. I think it's really important to work with your doctor when it comes down to your medications to determine if there's an interaction, because it's just typically not one medication, because we normally end up on one medication, then they say, oh, well, we have to give you this medication right now. And so we normally end up on multiple medications. And so I think it's really good if you talk with your doctor for that and include the dietitian. But I think that's more of an interdisciplinary approach. It'd be kind of hard to go through and say avoid all these because I think the list would cross over quite a bit. But I certainly would recommend to get with your doctor and to see. A good example would be if we're on Coumadin, we may have to limit green leafy vegetables because that has vitamin K in it, and vitamin K is a blood thinner, and is a blood thickener, and thins the blood. So there's a kind of an example of where we'd have to watch out for food and drug interaction. What can I eat to help with constipation? I've kind of mentioned this throughout the presentation, but fruits and vegetables are great. Let's take an apple, for instance. The outside of the apple or the skin is insoluble fiber, so that really helps with constipation. And it doesn't break down as much in our body, so it kind of stays whole and it helps to drive food and things out of our body. The inside of the apple is, kind of like where they call like the fruit of the apple is really is the soluble fiber. So that goes in and it helps to break down fats and other things. That also helps with constipation. So fruits and vegetables are great. Whole grains are great. Prunes are really a good source. If we need to use prunes. So there's some great stuff out there. There's even some medications like Seneca and Colace that can help. Sometimes if we can't eat all these foods that are high in fiber, sometimes we have to turn to a medication. And working with your dietitian and your physician, we can help to determine that. And again, remember to drink plenty of fluid because we have to have those hand in hand. What foods are good for heart health at my age? I feel like we've went over that quite a bit, but again, lower fat or unsaturated fats, moderate sodium intake would be good. And overall, we just want to avoid very, very high fat foods. But I do want to say, like, if you enjoy like a chocolate chip cookie once a day or something like that, just work it into your meal plan. I think that's just so important. And then, can diet really help with arthritis or inflammation? I think diets can, but again, remember, we don't want to necessarily go on a diet, but we want to make healthy changes over a long period of time. And absolutely, fat and sodium can certainly lead to weight gain, which could increase inflammation or arthritis issues. We want to reduce inflammation. So eating healthier foods that we discussed throughout this presentation will help to reduce a chance of arthritis and inflammation overall. So I think that that's really, really key. All right, so practical or lifestyle questions. So how do I make easy meals easier? I think we're all looking for that, right? How do we just have healthier meals faster? I think now we have more choices than we ever had in the past. But one thing that we could do is we can use a speed scratch. So maybe we could, grab like a marinated chicken from the grocery store. We don't have to marinate it ourselves and we just cook it, right? And so that could be a speed scratch kind of situation. We can prepare bulk meals. So say like, and I know my wife and I try to do this over the weekend. We have a little bit more time. So we try to prepare meals for the rest of the week, or at least through Wednesday, to help us with that so we don't end up, doing the DoorDash thing or going out to a restaurant. And then that's when we start getting into some higher calories and so on and fat. So that's always good if we could do it. And we could even freeze some of those meals too, and put them in individual portions and just grab and go. We can basically make our own frozen meals, homemade frozen meals. And then, of course, we could use food delivery, but I say as a treat, right? So a lot of times you're going to be getting those from restaurants where they're not really focused on healthy. They just want it to taste good. So we could probably use that as a treat. All right. And then let's see, what are some healthy snacks that I can keep on hand? I think fruit is a really good snack, whether it's dried or frozen or whole fruit. I think that's good. But just remember that fruit can also increase blood sugar. Fruit has what we call fructose in it, which is basically a sugar. And so even if you eat too much, too much fruit, you can actually gain weight or increase blood sugar too. So that's why it's really a balance. Whole grain foods such as popcorn without butter, granola bars are great to carry around with you. They're shelf stable. You don't have to keep them in the refrigerator. So that's really good to bring around with you. And peanut butter really is great. Again, it delays the onset of high blood sugars or, things going into our blood that increase blood sugar. Peanut butter is also good for wound healing that we've learned over time too. So, peanut butter and crackers. We could do ants on a log, right? With the celery, you put the peanut butter in, and then the raisins. The raisins add more fiber, so that's really good. So those are some examples of some healthy snacks. But we do want to focus on the whole grains. I think that'd be really, really, really important. All right. We also have, vegetables. You can cut up vegetables and take them with you. Nuts that are unsalted, we find that are really good, and that helps with that lean protein again. Yogurt is really good, especially the active cultures, and low-fat cheese is really good too. So, is it okay to use meal replacement shakes? One thing I would say is that it is a meal replacement, so the best thing to do is always eat a meal or natural food. But of course, if you're not eating enough to support your weight, or you're just not feeling as hungry as maybe you feel you should be, then sometimes we have to use a meal replacement. Sometimes we have things going on with our teeth, like our oral, and we have to drink shakes maybe a little bit more. So it is typical as we age that we incorporate shakes, but or some kind of meal replacement, whether it be a shake or a food or something else. But I would say if you can eat this natural food, that's the best way to do it. And then we can add these replacements in if we need to. And then what is a good eating schedule if I get tired easily? That is a great question. So you probably don't want a 7-course meal, right? But what we could do is we could take the meals that you do have, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we can break those into 6 smaller meals. And typically that will help with energy because you're kind of getting energy throughout the day, and we're not feeling as overwhelmed with having a lot of food on our plate. I do hear that as we age, some people just feel overwhelmed with the amount of food that's on their plate. It's the food that they need to eat, but it's very overwhelming to them. So we can break those down and really do that in a much more manageable way. So that's what I had. Angie, do we have any questions? Any additional questions?
No, I don't see any others. I think because I generated some early on when I asked
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
attendees. So I don't see any new ones in the chat or in the Q&A, John, but thank you so much. I think you covered quite a few of those.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you to all that submitted those questions. They were fantastic to have those. Yeah.
Good. Well, John, we thank you so much for being with us today and your presentation. It certainly covered all areas of that we look for as, for our active aging residents and those who are in attendance on our call. And I do want to let everyone know that we are going to send this presentation out in a recorded form. We'll send you a link for that, as well as the follow-up slides from John's presentation. So you can also look through those if you're wanting to calculate that protein number or remembering how many cups of water to drink a day and things like that. So we're really grateful for John for providing these wonderful slides for us. Once again, you can always reach out to us at prestigecare.com. We have a variety of information on our website. We also have our social media pages for all of our communities. If you'd like to go and check out those communities that are located on our website, see some of the adventurous things that are happening amongst our residents within those communities, and also be ready to sign up and register for upcoming webinars, as we do like to do a new one every quarter. Just kind of keep you informed, keep you understanding best ways of practice as you age and best ways for wellness. We always want to look at wellness throughout our life, whether it's brain, body, and spirit. We are always focusing on those within our communities as well. So once again, my name is Angie France. I'm grateful that you came to be a part of our webinar today.